process to determine the location of the Eastern Rec and Sports Centre, and I've done some changes to the motion that I had the amendment that I had originally put up. So if we could go to the amendment that I would like to move. So this is what I moved at the end with some minor amendments. What I moved at the end of the last council meeting. So I'm sorry, Councillor Johansson, when you asked the question, did we have anything else? I don't think that the council directed staff to actually alter the paper. It was simply to enable us time to debate the motion that had been moved. There wasn't agreement around this particular motion, and there wasn't time. We were under a time constraint to debate it. So this is the time to debate it. So I'd like to move this amendment, and we'll be looking for a seconder. But basically, it asks for three things. One is that we get on with the site selection process for an Eastern Rec and Sports Centre in the northeast of Christchurch. So without defining northeast particularly, it's the northeast, with the final decision on the process, and that's the process including the site criteria, the criteria that will be applied, and the working party membership being determined by the Burwood Pegasus Community Board, the chair of the community committee and the mayor, so that's Councillor Johansson, myself, working with the community board to sign off on a process, not the decision, but just the process. And then completely separately, request staff to identify options for a legacy project in New Brighton and report these back to the council by the end of May 2014. So that's a very tight time frame, but I know that the New Brighton community have been working very hard on the proposals that they do want us to consider, and that will be a time frame that I believe we can see a report back to council. And then finally, separately again, completely separately from the other two, request staff to identify opportunities and options for an aquatic facility in the Linwood-Woolston area, but possibly in conjunction with the Ministry of Education. And the only reason that is included here is that I went back and read the minutes of the meeting when the decision was made around the Eastern Rec and Sports Centre, and a motion was put to the council that there be an aquatic facility in this area, in the Linwood-Woolston area, at the same time. So the council passed the resolution about the the Eastern Rec and Sports Centre, and then declined the resolution on the other. And I just think it left a gap, and it's too big a gap to leave open, because what it does is it says that we ignore the opportunity that building new schools in that area obviously provide. And it's not going to be a major facility, but if the school's providing a facility there, can we leverage off that and get something in that area that would make a difference? And you know, I know that people have commented about the Sport and Rec Centre in town, the Metro Centre, you know, being in the Hagley Ferrymead ward. Well, it's right on the other side of Hagley Park, other side of the city, up against Hagley Park, and this is an opportunity potentially for an option. And I think that this council needs to commit to it. This doesn't commit us to the different funding models, but we have to look at those funding models as part of the report back. So. So I would like to move that. Would somebody like to second it? David East. So let's discuss that motion. Yanni.
Sorry, I just it's different to the resolution or the recommendation that I saw from you. Are you saying that you're using the existing site criteria and working party membership as identified in the report?
No.
So I think that needs to be really clear.
So it begins a site selection process. So with the final decision on the process to be signed off. So, and that's why it describes including sites criteria and working party membership. So it's the the Burwood Pegasus Community Board, with sign-off from you and me, we will decide the process and the working party membership. So we'll sign off on it. So the process will be determined by that, so it can get underway. That's the driver of this, is to get that Eastern Wrekin Sports Centre process underway.
I understand that, but I think there's a kind of chicken and egg thing. So who's going to develop the criteria? We'll develop that jointly, because I originally thought it was the chair of the community board. It just seems like if you're going to go through a formal decision-making process of the board, that's going to take a lot longer.
It wasn't intended to take longer. I mean, the Burwood Pegasus Community Board meets every fortnight.
So the concern was that there's been a number of deputations really concerned about the process and the criteria that are being used for the site selection. So we need to relook at that. Personally, I would have preferred a workshop so we can go through in detail. But given that, there's a desire to get this going, I think we need to be really clear about the fact that we are looking at a new process and new criteria.
Why? Because I would suggest that clause, all it does is say that you're starting a site selection process.
Why don't we begin a new site selection process?
Well, okay,
If
all right.
that's the...
I think that this has got to get a move on, and I think that paragraph or that clause is absolutely fine. And if there is a new site selection process, then that can be communicated by the Burwood Pegasus Community Board and discussed in that community itself. But I think we need to get on with it.
Yeah, I don't mind adding the word new if that helps clarify.
Do you want to put a timeline on one as well as two?
Was always going to be September for the definitive site.
It's
in the
too.
end.
No, it's we do want it sooner than that. So
So let's say that at the end.
no, well, it's the site selection process gets signed off. The final decision will come back to council.
So let's put a timeline on.
Well, how long's a piece of string? I don't know the answer to that question. Well, that's true. Okay.
I think people need to know that.
Well, why don't we have a report back? So once the site selection process is determined, which will be in the next, I would imagine it'll be by the end of the month. So that there's an interim report to council in May. So that in May, the community board can report to. In fact, that they'll be on the first agenda of
Why don't you just add
of the May.
A report from this group.
That a
comes to the
report
council
from this
in
group
May.
in May. Yeah. So yeah. So a report from the community board.
from that group,
Yeah.
in May,
In May.
and they can go as fast.
And then they can recommend to us the timeline that they want for the final decision. Is that all right?
That's missing is the scale of the project. So there's been no clear understanding about the scale of the project. So I think it's really important that that gets defined in some way, because actually, until you know the scale, it's quite hard to know what size site you might be looking at.
Yeah.
So is it possible perhaps just to add something to give effect to that? Because people have different ideas about what the replacement facility was going to be for QE2.
It isn't a replacement facility for QE2.
No,
and I think
understand
that people have to stop saying that. It isn't a replacement for QE2. QE2 was a metro facility in the Burwood Pegasus ward. It wasn't just a community facility like other community facilities. There's been a range of expectations that have been built up, but until we know about the site, the land, the land will determine a lot about what is possible and where it is possible. So I'd rather, to get this process underway, they're going to have the power to call for reports on the land. They're going to be able to look at the costings and the potential impacts of decisions that are made. We know that there are enormous challenges on the east, especially with a large, heavy facility as opposed to, light residential. So, there are going to be enormous challenges in a number of respects. But let's get that process underway and to come back to council, because we haven't had a report on the scale. In fact, that's been one of my frustrations about this whole process.
That's what I'm not clear about, is at what point. So if I was building a car park, I'd need to know whether I'm parking 100 cars or whether I'm parking 2 before I decide what piece of land I would buy or would be preferable. So
Be done in parallel. I mean, look, I don't understand this. I'm not being critical of you, Yanni, but we have to get on with this. And I think that this information that you're talking about, that I agree is necessary in the decision making, is information that the working party and working group can collate and work at the same time as pulling all the other information together.
The reason I raise this is what I'm really concerned is if you get a working party that goes away and looks at a $100 million project, which is not something that we as a council feel comfortable with, then we're not actually going to make much progress at all. So if we don't define the scale early on, or put some parameters around the scale, we run the risk of having what's happened previously, which is we spend a whole year doing work that comes up with something that we don't accept.
I totally understand where you're coming from, and you're expressing a frustration that I have had all the way through this process in a slightly different way. But I would like it to be a parallel discussion, and I don't think that it needs to be included in the resolution, because we're going to have to, work alongside the working party as they develop site criteria. And site criteria are going to have to look at partly the scale, but until we know about the quality of the land and all of the different options that are available, then I almost think that part of it's going to be driven off another. People's expectations have been built off the amount that's been set aside in the budget, whereas I'm not persuaded that that is that I don't know that that's necessarily going to deliver what people think it's going to deliver.
Would the working party then also be charged with determining the scope of the project?
I think that we're going to have to work on scope earlier on. It can be a parallel process. I think people are going to be quite surprised by the challenges that different sites present. So, but I don't know what the answer to the question is. I really want to have an in-depth investigation on sites that are in the northeast. I think what went wrong was that the previous process suddenly opened it up right across into the other area. And I don't think that's... And I think that happened because the other resolution didn't deal with the Hagley Ferrymead ward in the way that it should have. Dave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pardon my raspy voice today. This has been a very long and protracted process, and it's really consumed my time and passion probably over a couple of years or more. And I really do hope that we can make some progress today. Staff were requested to produce a report to allow the process for selecting a site for the Eastern Suburbs Sport and Recreation Facility to proceed, and I believe they've really done what they were asked, and essentially I believe we're here today to set this process on the way. The loss of QE2 has had a huge effect on the residents of Burwood Pegasus and indeed the whole city. Residents are keen for a replacement facility and have signalled the need for something that is bigger and better than Jelly Park. A budget of $30.1 million and subsequent addition of $6.5 million from the Earthquake Appeal Trust has been seen as a good signal for this project. Alongside the need for a new pool, it was also the problem of a declining New Brighton business area. Tim Sintis and I, rightly or wrongly, proposed an aquatic proposal to address both issues that drew support of over 20,000 people. the opportunity was seen to combine the Eastern Suburbs Sport and Rec facility with an economic uplift for the area by locating the two in the same area. Investment in the coastal area of the ward has been minimal for decades, and the pier was funded by 50% local funding due to the reticence really of council to invest in the project. The coastal strip of Christchurch has been the site of the Bexley dump, Burwood landfill and the sewage treatment plant. It seems the city's is always happy to dispose of its rubbish and effluent in this part of town, but has been reticent in having any other investment apart from QE2 itself in 1974, which in itself was highly controversial at the time and cost the sitting mayor his seat. There's still a stigma around the eastern suburbs where I believe the area is still considered second rate. In the early 1900s, there was a saying, are you married or do you live in Brighton, which was a reflection on the practice of the wealthy keeping their mistresses in the area. So going forward, a number of sites have been identified, and it's also encouraging to see a move to recognise the need for a legacy project in New Brighton. A point of difference that I and many local people have been advocating for a long time. Funding for this project can be public-private enterprise with the possibility of earthquake appeal trust funding being applied as well. We are staffed for a way forward, and their proposal met what I believe was a way forward. I believe the resolution that we have before us today is also a way forward. I'm keen to avoid a hell of a lot more consultation and workshops, as we've debated this issue endlessly for a long time now. So I would urge fellow councillors to support this amendment, and let's just get on and do something in that side of town. Thank you.
Oh, wouldn't mind. Sure, yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. First one, regarding to the committee recommendation, I review the staff, the kind of the meeting agenda regarding to the 3.3. If based on the 3.3, the staff original council criteria, has been detailed in the aquatic facility plan 2006, and also have a couple of times the amendment. One time in June 2012, the other time is in February 2014. I would like to ask the staff, in 2006. This the council criteria, or this the detailed aquatic facility plan, whether has been presented to the council, even previous council, or just a staff, your idea?
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Yeah, the criteria on which council uses to locate its aquatic facilities was presented to the council and formally approved by the council in the 2006 aquatic facilities plan. So there was a formal report that went to council quite explicitly, and council signed it off.
And my sub-question is, how about in June 2012 and also in February 2014? These two times you have amendment, whether presented to the council, either in council meeting or in a workshop.
The aquatic facilities plan has been reviewed. a couple of times since 2000. It's been reviewed 3 times since 2006. There has been one adjustment to the criteria, and that adjustment has been primarily around strengthening the criteria as it refers to the geological suitability of land to build a swimming pool upon, and the possible effects on the economic development on a certain area. So it's those 2 criteria have not been formally ratified by the council. I would expect any working party to look at all the criteria and apply them, along with any others that they choose to do so, in reaching a decision on the location of a pool.
So based on the 2 times in June 2012 and February 2014, this kind of aquatic facility plan, you are not presented to the council. So the council actually today, we have no any sufficient information whether we would like to go to the committee or not. Especially I review my question, yes. Because based on the 3.3 in this aquatic facility plan, you emphasize the 3 facilities, in citywide. One is in the Metro Sports Center. Second is the Eastern. The other is in the Southwest. But right now, committee, the recommendations of 3 in the Eastern. What is your point of view?
Or not actually, John?
Councillor Chen, my point of view is that council have made a decision to build a recreation and sports centre in the east at QE2 or another suitable location. They made that resolution almost 2 years ago, and we haven't begun the process yet. My view is that we should begin a process to do just that as soon as possible. Whether that results in any other facilities that may or may not be considered, that is almost irrelevant. In my view, what is relevant is to embark on, delivering council's decision and hopefully a recreation sports centre in the northeast.
On the eastern aquatic facilities, the issue of whether there is and when there is a new aquatic facility in the southwest is not under debate here. There is no doubt that there will be a new aquatic facility in the southwest. So we're not resigning from that at all. So I have Glenn. So we're actually, have we finished questions? No. These are questions, okay. Phil and then Jamie.
Well, I agree with Councillor Chen that besides proceeding with this as fast as we can, that this council needs to have the overview. So my question basically is, when can this council see the overall aquatic facilities review as a context for actually progressing some very important developments?
The chair of the community committee has asked for the March 2014 review of the aquatic facilities plan to be presented to the April 15th meeting of the community committee, and then onwards, it's our aim to do that. We have a updated review and a report ready for sign off today, and hopefully we'll meet the deadline. So 15th of April, community committee.
Thanks, cheers, John. Look, my question around this is, I'm happy that you've got 6.2.1 and 6.2.2 actually feeding in at the same date. I think that makes a lot of sense. Just as a bit of a side thing, where the council obviously has committed to a recreation and swimming or aquatic facility in the east. Back it, not under debate. How many that is, look, I don't know. I'm not sure if that is through. I haven't seen a cost-benefit analysis. I haven't seen a wider strategy. I have reservations around that, but I've got an open mind going forward. My question is, could the site selection for the sport and rec facility that you outlined in 6.2.1 potentially be the same one that's the legacy project that's alluded to in 6.2.2?
Councillor Gough, they are different beasts. The facility envisaged under 6.2.1 is a community recreation sports centre. It's not a legacy project envisaged for New Brighton. So no, it would be I would envisage a different process, and we would certainly want to engage with the business community of New Brighton, engage with our planners, engage with the community board before coming back to the council in May on a process that looks forward to 6.2.2.
Okay, and a quick supplementary, I guess, then to that. So you've got three pieces of work effectively there, but at any one, the council is going to be looking at it, and you weigh up the pros and cons, and you can say yes to one, no to some, and when you look at it as a whole, it may become more clear what the right direction is to go or not, whether that's one, three of them, or whatever. I guess this just to give me a bit of comfort here. You're coming back with options about how this may look, really, isn't it? The process, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm completely comfortable with that, and that's probably tied in my speech too, so I can speak with my vote.
Mine's not a question. I'm just going to say I'm going to support this. I think it's actually really, really important, notwithstanding that we have going to have pressures all throughout the city as the city expands. We've had a major shortage in the east with the loss of the Kiritu facility. But we've got to start celebrating our coastline. We've got a beautiful coastline. I think this is going to actually put some energy back into some areas that have been long forgotten and hopefully help regenerate and actually help celebrate for the rest of Christchurch to come out and celebrate the beauty we have in our natural assets. So I'm going to be supporting this. I think it's long overdue, and I just think we just need to get on with it.
Thank you. I have a question for John, just in light of issues around deferred maintenance on Jelly Park, for example, which hasn't been able to close because it's so well used, issues around Wharenui and repairs required there. Do we have to be careful in considering in these options and the process as well, but in the options, the money that we may, we don't want our current facilities in any way to close for any long periods of time or completely, because we don't have the money to keep those going or to repair them in order to fund 3 new projects. Is that something that you will be considering in this, should this go through?
Councillor Jones, Council has set aside resources to build, operate and maintain one recreation sports centre. They are quite substantial resources. I would say it was certainly a question that the council would want to consider when discussing all of the opportunities for all of the potential projects, be they swimming pools in the east or anything else. And I think council could expect officers to come back with information on long-term cost implications and possibly priorities. So I'd say it was very much something you'd want to look at.
Can I just add to that quickly though, and I just say this to my colleagues, that this is a great place to start and I support where we're at with this. We've got to get a move on, and I'm glad that these are happening in parallel. However, I will sound a word of warning with regards to other facilities around town and the money that will be required for 3 here when we have other parts of town that either don't have facilities now or potentially won't have facilities because of deferred maintenance and other issues with earthquake damage.
Reasonably, some maintenance on Pioneer and one of the other pools reasonably soon?
Madam Deputy Mayor, Vicky.
Way better.
So I don't know what to call you in these circumstances. Yeah.
My name hasn't changed, actually.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say now. The aquatics review coming back to the community committee will identify some cost pressures that will be faced by council in keeping existing facilities open. It will be reported to the community committee on the 15th of April, and the very purpose of doing that is to ensure that council's decision making in respect of aquatic facilities and other facilities is done in context, so that council knows what liabilities it faces. There is nothing in that review which in any way, in my opinion, prevents us going down this track. Prevents us building, owning and operating a recreation sport facility in the North East. But there is information that council will want to look at, particularly in its long-term planning process, on the affordability of aquatic facilities citywide over a period of 30 years.
Is there a reason, Yanni, you might be able to help with this as well, is there a reason why the information in the report that you're bringing to our community committee can't or shouldn't in fact go to the full council or to the committee of the whole? It's because of the information that is in that. I just wonder, why are you laughing? Is there something I don't know about?
Perhaps it should have been here today.
There is something I don't know about. Okay, all right. Why shouldn't this come to committee of the whole or the committee, to the council, full council?
The report that accompanies the review of the aquatic facilities plan asks the community committee to refer it to the committee of the whole for council-wide discussion. So it's exactly.
I don't get that. Aren't we just creating another loop or link in the chain? Why can't it?
Yeah. The report. Excuse me.
Well, I'd be interested in Yanni's. I don't get that, to be frank.
So the council has a whole bunch of strategies. So Phil, as chair of environment, will have the Christchurch transport plan. That doesn't come to the committee of the whole. So he'll have a whole bunch of natural environment strategies, biodiversity, wastewater, stormwater. Doesn't come to the committee of the whole. So, I think we need to be clear that, we've set our terms of reference. Part of the problem with this, and I tried to get this done as part of the aquatic facilities review, and that was rejected by the council. They said they didn't want that. They wanted this to come ahead of the aquatic facilities review. I've always believed that this should have been done as part of that comprehensive review post-earthquake, but that has been, that hasn't carried favour. So, we may wish to have a workshop with councillors over it. What previously happened is there was a workshop with councillors who expressed concerns about the aquatic facilities review. Generally, out of workshops, that would generate a report to the committee or to the council. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened for 2 years. So what we need to do is just close that loop so that the concerns that councillors have, and given now we've got a new council, it may be that we actually wish to have a workshop with the full council over it, so that that report can reflect some of the issues and ideas that we have as councillors. So, yeah.
I think the important thing is that it's coming quickly and it's coming through various mechanisms to the full council, so we'll get there. Are there any other questions before I come to you, Andrew? No? In that case, you can relax, John. Thank you. Yeah, I am. So are you going to, you're not going to ask a question though, are you? No, you're going to speak and then Andrew's speaking. Yep.
I'll stand up. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor from New Brighton, whose vote I'm counting on. But anyway, I retract the first word. Look, I have a letter here from today from Hugh Brown, who's with us, and his letter really reinforces what we've heard through annual plans ever since QE2 was lost in February 2011. And two of the main themes that have come through, somewhere for children to learn to swim and somewhere for the lifeguards to train so that they can help the children when they need that assistance and, of course, help the whole community. We've heard today through women's voices the longing for a sense of community, a gathering point. This actually was one of the themes that came through the unfortunate social housing flat closure during this past week. The residents, can reasonably withstand having to shift, but it's actually the loss of the sense of community that will be a great loss for them. In terms of these recommendations, I like the signal that they send out that we're actually getting on with the job, and I think it's time just to get on with it. They signal some degree of certainty for a community that longs for it. They signal hope. In New Brighton, the community expanded, obviously, in the heyday of Saturday shopping when it virtually had a monopoly, but it never contracted. And that could be something we need to look at as part of this legacy project as well. What I would say in relation to the aquatic facilities review, I would say Councillor Johansson isn't wrong, and that technically would be what you would do. My argument counter to that, and we can still do it, would be that this is simply a replacement for something that was first lost. So yes, let's do that. Let's hold both together if you wish. My final point on this is actually I think the city would like this. This would help the city's recovery if they could see that a facility, a substantial facility, would go back in the east. This would actually help the city recover. And I'd like, in this term, I tried to promote this in the previous term, when it comes to ward issues, if we consider that attitude that my ward is your ward, so that it's difficult. We're constantly holding this tension between being a city councillor and a ward councillor, and we have to find a way in which we can hold that tension together. So please, I encourage you to vote for this and to see this as good for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm supporting the motion today. We've heard a lot of deputations from people in the community. We've had a lot of discussion ourselves as a council to put this in a sport and recreation context. It's a ball that we've been kicking around for some time, and the previous council were kicking it around before we got it passed to us as well. But the one thing that we've heard loud and clear from all of the people who've come to talk to us about this, and from much of the discussion that we've had internally as well, there's a really strong, urgent need for us to get on with this. And we need to find a process that allows us to get on with this, and in my view, here is that process. The public, the residents, with all of their differing views, want us, in fact expect us to get on with this piece of work as urgently as we possibly can, and that's certainly something that's come through very clearly in many of the conversations that we've had. The needs, it's fair to say, through our discussions are becoming increasingly clearly understood. It's reflected in the resolution today, and it was reflected in the resolution for the recommendation from the Community Committee as well. 3 separate projects: a legacy project for New Brighton, a northeastern aquatic facility, and I hold back from using the words a replacement for QE2 because I agree with the Mayor's comments that raises an expectation around size and scale. We shouldn't show any prejudice around that. We should just let that be a part of the process from the working group and any possible subsequent workshops and decisions. And then the ongoing need for a facility in the Linwood-Woolston area. And I also make the point in relation to what Councillor Livingston has said, that the residents of the city don't see themselves as defined by ward boundaries. They see themselves as possibly communities of need, and they know what they want in their local neighbourhoods, they know what they expect and need in their local neighbourhoods, but they perhaps don't see themselves as defined by ward boundaries as we do. So to be looking at this in the context of the needs of the East, rather than the needs of Burwood, Pegasus and Hagley Ferrymead, is the way that we should be looking at it. I just wanted to make some comments about the need for a legacy project in New Brighton. And as the councillor with Littleton in my ward, I'm very familiar with the need for urban regeneration, design-led solutions, for catalyst for private investment in areas and so on. And it's very important when we consider the needs of New Brighton and when we consider what a legacy project for New Brighton might look like, that the economic development and the social development of the area are the guiding principles for that. And they're quite different principles than we would be looking at for what the needs of recreation and aquatic recreation in particular are for the northeast or the east in general. And yeah, what we need to come up with for New Brighton is something that ticks those boxes, that allows for that catalyst for private investment and that catalyst for social interaction in New Brighton, for that redevelopment of New Brighton to take place. And these are some of the very same issues that we've been wrestling with in Littleton, so I certainly understand the needs there, and the challenges, in fact, as well. So, yeah, I'm supporting this motion because it gives us the ability to look at those three separate projects, all of which need our consideration, and certainly two of which are very urgent. And I'd just like to stress the absolute need and the expectation on the part of the community that we'll just get on with this work and it'll happen as a matter of urgency.
Today, I cannot support this one. The reason is very simple. We heard from the staff, because the key issue is the amendment of the aquatic facility plan. The council, amendment for 2 times. First time in June 2012, second time in the February 2014. But where is the document? How council make a decision today? I think quite ridiculous. The committee recommendation, the 6.1, my personal view, that's very reasonable. Why staff can have urgent presentation briefing to the council, give council overall picture, overall the information, then we make a decision. Then staff mentioned, on 14th of this month, we'll make decision. But up to now, I have not yet get a list of information. Because this facility plan is very crucial. Why? They including the criteria, including the process, and also including all those the kind of the procedure, etc. Then everyone, get the sufficient information. Lack of information as a councillor, I cannot make a decision. Sorry, I cannot make a decision until I get all this the information. And also, if we lack of this information, how do we to prioritize why the 6.2.1 is higher than 6.2.3? I have no any idea. If we review the staff information here, actually that's screening for many the location, but finally screening to the 7. But 7 have a northeast, east, southeast, etc. I don't know. We cannot assume, this is the reasonable. Assume it's not scientific. Sorry, I cannot today make the decision to support this one. Sorry.
Thank you. Look, I think this isn't ideal because the Aquatic Facilities Review hasn't been done by the council. We haven't approved it, but I do accept there's a need to get on and get things done. And so this is a compromise, and I'm happy to support it. I think it's really important that we send a signal that we are looking at the Linwood-Woolston area. We're also, I would hope, as part of the new site selection process, looking at working with the Ministry of Education in the North East as well. That's not to say that that's the course of action we'll go down, but we actually should be thinking about are there opportunities there. I did want to pick up on some comments that have been made by several councillors that for somehow New Brighton's been forgotten about and lacked investment and that in that wider area. I actually want to dispel that myth, because actually, what have we done? We've built a new library. We've built one in New Brighton. We've also built one more recently in Aranui. What have we done? What other things have we done in Aranui? We've committed to a new community centre. We've put a temporary gym in Parklands. We've got a Parklands library that's open. So actually, there has been a lot of consideration about facilities in that area by council. There has been a big investment. So I just think we need to put it into context, because sometimes we hear these comments that it's been forgotten about, actually no, it's had a huge amount of public investment. But for whatever reason, it's had issues in the past. And going forward post-earthquake, it's obviously got new issues to consider, such as the loss of population and the red zone and the impact that that's going to have. So I welcome the opportunity to look at a legacy project for New Brighton in much the same way that we've committed to the coastal pathway from Sumner to the estuary edge. I think a legacy project in New Brighton makes a lot of sense post-earthquake, and we've already heard some comment on that in regards to Littleton. And I think it's important to separate these two projects out. The reason this has taken so long is that they all got put together and it created a divisive process. The key thing is to have a really clear, straightforward process that people can understand, so that when people make submissions, and sitting through the Central City Plan, sitting through the annual plan, sitting through the number of different processes that Council had in place to consider the future of QE2 and the Metro Sports Facility, it was just a complete maze of what not to do. We never had a clearly defined process to determine what we did in regards to the issue of the future of QE2. And there were all sorts of stuff happening both by government and by council that meant things like Centennial Pool, things like QE2, ended up being a Metro Sports Facility in a location that the community never had a chance to make submissions on. So I stress the clarity of process and the idea that we would have a definition, at least some sort of needs assessment and scale of project that we're talking with people about is incredibly important. So yeah, that really just wanted to make those comments. I also wanted to make the comment that actually there is a lot of aquatic facilities in the north, there is a lot of aquatic facilities in the west, and there is a lot in the south. The big gap is in the east, and it is both over the Linwood-Woolston area, and it is over towards the New Brighton area around the QE2, the old QE2 site. So when you look at the map, which you have, and you see the ones that have shut, you see the ones that are open, you can see really clearly that actually it's not about the east getting any more than the west. It's actually about addressing the gap in provision that exists both before the earthquake and post-earthquake. So I really want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I agree with Yanni. This is actually, don't forget, it's replacing an asset that was there. The facility sat inside the aquatics facility strategy. It was a strategic location pre-earthquake. And I can't see, without having a crystal ball, I can't see that that would change in the up-and-coming review that we will get in April. So I think that we can see this as a need that needs to be replaced out here. This is not binding, this is beginning a process, and I agree that we have to get on and get it going, and it looks like it's an open process. It's going to be engaging with the community and everyone that has a view. So I'm going to support this recommendation. Thank you.
I'm also very happy to support it. I think actually what we're dealing with here is a process, and part of what has come through very strongly from the community is the frustration at the process, and actually allowing the community board to be the lead on this process is quite a major move for the council as well, which I like. I think it's important that we actually use the community knowledge to the full. I'm not sure about the term legacy project for Brighton. It sounds as though Brighton is somehow dead, and Brighton is very far from dead. It's a very lively, engaging community that has very strong opinions and probably always will have, which is stunning, and has its own quite unique identity, I think. So I'm not sure about that term, but I'm not worried about it at this stage. What we want to do is get on with a process. We have the whole review coming back on the 15th, so that this can be worked in with that. Like Jimmy, I support additional facilities in the southwest, because although there are some facilities there at the moment, the rate of growth in that area of the city is incredible, and a lot of subdivisions are going in, unlike the one that we're about to do today, without a lot of community facilities. So I'm happy that we do this. I think it's important that we actually get on and define the process so that people can be engaged in this and work through it. There are unspoken in this some potential major financial considerations, which will come back to this council. It's not the subject today, but there is implicit within this some major financial considerations at a time when this council has still some huge financial pressures. So we need to be aware of those in the back of our mind as we vote. But unless there's anybody else, I'm going to put the motion now. And as you'll see at the top, we've changed it slightly because the council actually delegated this to the Committee of the Whole from its last meeting. Okay, so with that amendment, it's moved and seconded. I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. I declare it carried. Okay. So moving on to the next item.